Hi, this is Leonie O'Moore, comic creator, and you are entering the Fanbase.
Hello and welcome to episode 54 of the Fanbase Weekly podcast. For this week, our special guests are comic book writers Rob Harrington of SLEIGHER and Giulie Speziani of Cash and Carrie.
This week, we discuss the need for diversity in the Star Wars writer-director pool, the history of Wakanda, the successful launch of Falcon Heavy, and the trailers for Venom, Deadpool 2, and Solo: A Star Wars Story. Thought we were in trouble there for a second, but it's fine. We're fine. Now let's head inside the Fanbase.
Seven days a week, it's the 365, it's the give you what you need at the. If you're along for the ride, you are now entering into the fan base. Comics and TV, geek news you need every day of the week. We're indie down to the long boxes, the tabletops is where we do battle ready or not, kid. To the trolls and the haters, we'd rather wait and see, cause I believe in Harvey Dent, it's the nerd in me. Cause I can't help but getting geeked out at cool stuff. 7 days a week, it's the 365, it's the give you what you need at the Fanbase Weekly.
Hello, listeners, and thank you for joining us for the latest episode of the Fanbase Weekly podcast. As always, I am joined by co-hosts Claire Thorne. Hello, Claire. Hello. Drew Siragusa. Hello, Drew.
Hello.
And Bryant Dillon. Hello, Bryant.
What's going on, Barbra?
That was just weird. Why you did that.
How you doing?
In addition, we are joined by special guests Giulie Speziani, writer of Cash and Carrie and contributor to Advanced Death Saves. Hello, Giulie.
Hello.
And we are also joined by Rob Harrington, writer of SLEIGHER and Pluto Moonbase. Hello, Rob.
Hello.
Thank you guys both for joining us. We're excited to have you back, Giulie.
Thank you.
I think this your second time?
Second time.
Second time. Okay,
Yeah.
Very good. Well, what can you tell us about Advanced Death Saves? You had a successful Kickstarter campaign last year, and books are going out now. But can you tell us a little bit about the premise of the project?
So, if you ever do any tabletop games or any type of games, it's the second part of the series, or I guess the second volume, where a lot of the players get to go off in their own stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I was contributing a short story to that as well. So it's called Tit for Tat.
Very cool. And I believe that the project is under the helm of Josh Trujillo. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. And did you have a writer attached to your story that you worked with?
No.
Or not a writer, I'm sorry, an artist.
Yeah. So I reached out to Adrian Gonzalez Bago. He did the art, and I just did the writing part.
Well, in addition to Advanced Death Saves, you were also working on Volume 2 of Cash and Carrie. And what can you tell us about the upcoming volume?
So the upcoming volume is right now in the artist's hands. So Marcus Plame is coming back, and he's doing the art for it. The co-creator as well is Sean Fryer. So he's also, I think, contributing some stories as well. But Cash and Carrie, the second volume is going to concentrate on them going away for summer camp. So it's kind of like a sleepaway camp. And some calamity ensues when, campers are, getting into like mischief, and there's a bit of a mystery involved. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we will make sure at the end of the podcast to talk about where our listeners can find both of those volumes.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And Rob, what can you tell us about SLEIGHER for those who may be unfamiliar with the premise of that story?
It's called SLEIGHER, the Heavy Metal Santa Claus, and it's exactly what it sounds like. That's I came up with the title first, and then came up with the story afterwards. But
it's like snakes on a plane.
Yeah. So it's just a Santa Claus who is really into heavy metal, and he is the latest in a long lineage of Santa Clauses. And he goes around and protects the innocent kids of the world, and does it his own way. And it was a 4-issue miniseries through Action Lab, and it's been collected into a trade that's available on Amazon.
Very cool. Awesome. And you were also in the works in an amazing project with Jared Sams. Is that correct?
Yes. We don't have a title for it right now. Our working title is called Fairy Tale Grindhouse, but we're taking fairy tale stories and retelling them kind of like Grindhouse movies, stories.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah. Mine is Snow White. His was Cinderella. And
Does she have a machine gun leg?
No. But there has like a big car chase. Like one issue is just an entire car chase.
Nice.
And we're working on that, and hopefully some point this year it'll be ready and we can release it. Possibly Kickstarter. That's what we're thinking. We're hoping. So
Very cool. Well, we hope that you and Jared, when the Kickstarter campaign launches, will come back on the show and talk more about it.
Oh yeah, we'd love to. Thank you.
That would be awesome. Yes, absolutely. Well, before we continue on, I do want to say a little note here at Fanbase Press. It is our mission to celebrate fandoms and create new ones, which is why on every episode of the Fanbase Weekly, we share what we are a fan of. And before we delve into our picks for this week, I wanted to let our listeners know a little reminder that you can now call in and let us know what you are a fan of each week. As a new feature of the podcast, listeners can call into the official Fanbase Weekly call-in line and leave us a message. Feel free to share what you are a fan of this week or share any questions, comments, concerns, and all other geeky inquiries, which will be shared on the following week's episode. So please feel free to call us at 818-208-7379, and we look forward to hearing you. Before we find out what our panelists are a fan of this week, let's go to the official Fanbase Weekly voicemail to hear from our listeners.
Hey, this is Travis. Just wanted to call and give some quick hits for the Fanbase Weekly. One, Falcon Heavy and a galactic car ride. One of the best moments in space travel, possibly. Two, along with Fanbase Press showcasing behind the scenes this year. It was great to read on IO9 about the process of creating Wakanda for Black Panther. Three, the trailer for the Wolverine The Long Night podcast. I'm interested to see what kind of story develops for a podcast. Number four, Jessica Jones trailer. Looks great to see her investigating her past and see how she got her powers. And five, shameless plug for the Geeky Parent Guide. The NASA Goddard Visitor Center liked a post on Facebook, and this comes after they shared one of the GPG's posts last month. So, 5 quick hits. Hope you have a good day. Rock on with the geeky goodness.
Thank you so much for calling in, Travis, and sharing what you are a fan of this week. Now let's go to our panel. Drew, what are you a fan of this week, sir?
I recently started playing the Lego Marvel Superheroes 2
You
game.
have piqued Claire's interest.
Yes.
One of my favorite things in the
It's
world.
a lot of fun. And Barbara, just so you know, you can play a Squirrel Girl.
Wonderful.
So
yes.
you'll be happy with that. And Black Panther. So
And Ms.
it's
Marvel.
good.
And
Yes.
Ms. Marvel.
I am intrigued.
Yes, it's. I mean, if you like the Lego games, it's exactly what you think it is. Just with, I don't think they have the Fox Marvel characters on there, so I haven't seen any X-Men or Fantastic Four. But other than that, it has mostly
Everything
everyone.
you
Yeah.
can think of from the beginning of time in this game. Every character. It's insane.
I love it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Drew.
Yeah.
Rob, what are you a fan of this week, sir?
I just started reading a book that I picked up like a year ago. It's called Shadows of the Dark Crystal. It's a prequel novel to the Dark Crystal. I think it might be a series that they're working on, but this first book just came out like a year and a half ago.
Was this the one through Archaea, or is this something totally different?
I'm not even sure because I picked it up at a used bookstore, and
okay.
it's like a preview copy, so it doesn't have all this stuff. I
Oh,
think it might
cool.
be Penguin.
Oh,
Penguin
okay.
books though.
Cool.
But yeah, if you're into Dark Crystal, which I am, it's actually Dark Crystal's. I don't remember seeing it when I was younger, but my parents tell me that was the first movie I ever saw in theaters.
Oh, nice.
So I kind of have a history with it. I just love that stuff. And yeah, I haven't finished it yet, but what I've read so far is really good.
Very cool. Awesome. Julie, what about you? What are you a fan of this week?
I'm actually reading a novel called Romantic Outlaws. It's about Mary Shelley and her mother, and by Charlotte Gordon. And so Mary Shelley is, of course, the writer of Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote that at 19. I did not know that.
I did not know
Yeah.
that either.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
I did know that.
You did?
Yeah, it was.
I was on that.
You're so smart, Brian.
I'm not smart.
Brian's
but
really
I
proud
am
of
really
himself
into
right
it.
now.
I know. I feel like I should just retire right now. But it's about she and her mother. actually, her mother died while giving birth to Mary Shelley, and so they never really met, but they both had pretty much things that to overcome. So being a feminist writer back in the day was very hard for them, but I mean, you get to see both personalities, even though they didn't actually meet. You get to see them both kind of like go through almost the same thing. And it's very interesting just to see the customs that were that was happening back then in terms of like women and what their roles were and how much they had to overcome. Especially since I'm a big Mary Shelley fan, I was like, oh, this is perfect. So if you're a fan of her work, you'd be a fan of her mom as well. It's great.
What was the name of the book again?
Romantic Outlaws.
Romantic Outlaws. Very cool. Awesome. Thank you. Claire, what are you a fan of this week?
Well, I was going to be a fan of the Falcon Heavy launch. Okay. But we can look forward to talking about that in much more detail later in the podcast because that's one of our stories.
Yes.
So I guess I can't pick that for my fan of. So instead, I'm going to be a fan of all of the geeky car decals I have purchased online and are on their way to me for my brand new car that I just bought on Friday.
So you're not a fan of the car, you're a fan of the decals.
A brand new car is always an excuse to get a lot of geeky decals to put on your car. So far I have a White Tree of Gondor.
Nice.
I have a Deathly Hallows symbol.
Okay.
I have a NASA logo. And I have the Battlestar Galactica insignia, and it also says "So Say We All" on it as well. So, and now I just have to settle on the license plate holder.
I feel like there's something missing.
What?
Some sort of fringe something.
Oh, I spent 2 hours this weekend looking for fringe car decals, and I know I can make my own, but I was just trying to I'll get one. Yeah, okay. It'll happen.
I know
or Thor's abs.
Or Thor's abs. Yeah, that would be good too.
So you're never going to have a hard time finding your car in a parking lot?
No, never.
You will always know which one is Claire's.
Yeah. Anyway, so if you have any suggestions about what my license plate holder should say, you can call in at the number I can't remember now because it's not written on my hand anymore. Sorry.
Bryant, what are you a fan of this week?
Well, we, you and I revisited Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring.
For the first time since it came out.
For you,
for
maybe.
Me.
Shameful.
I know.
Yeah, but it's back on Netflix, so we checked it out. Yes. And I always like revisiting films like this after a while because I feel like you pick up new things at different points in your life. And I found it really interesting. The line that really stuck with me this time was, and I mean, obviously it's highlighted in the film, so it's supposed to stick out, but is the interaction between Frodo and Gandalf about basically like essentially saying like when times of trouble come, no one really wants to be. They don't wish that they were the one that had to take on that task or be involved in those times, but you have to do what you can with the time that you're given. And obviously, given some of the inspirations for Tolkien on writing Lord of the Rings that relate to some of the wars that he lived through, I think it's kind of interesting to think about that and the creation behind it in relation to things that are going on in the world today.
Very good. I am, this is reaching back, but I am a fan this week of the show Frasier, which is now also on Netflix. But John Mahoney, who is a wonderful character actor, passed away this past week. And he has been in so many wonderful TV shows and movies that it's too numerous to count. But his passing really reminded me of how much I enjoyed watching him growing up on Frasier. So I have started diving into that show again. And just remembering how, do you ever just like Brian saying with Lord of the Rings, dive back into something that you haven't watched in decades. And it's just so fun. And it's so exciting to revisit it. So I'm having a really exciting time revisiting.
I recently
with
learned
Niles
he was only like 15 years older than Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, really?
Yeah. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So I am a fan of John Mahoney and of his stint on Frasier.
And I'm thinking now that the really good license plate holder would be that all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. Quote, which is, Brian was just talking about.
That.
Maybe I'll do that.
There you go. Decision made.
I know. We're good.
Well, on that momentous note, we are going to take a brief break. We will return after this message with our first story for this week.
Hey everyone, this is Bryant Dillon from Fanbase Press, and I'm here to let you know that in addition to our podcast and website, Fanbase Press is also a publisher of comic books, graphic novels, and other fine media. If you've never taken a peek inside the pages of Fanbase Press's epic and awesome Penguins vs. Possums graphic novel, then forget all you think you know. In Penguins vs. Possums, a secret war has been waged between the two species since the dawn of time, each determined to annihilate the other. Throughout the millennia, they have kept their battle confined to the shadows. However, one brazen act has escalated this conflict to a fever pitch. As the world careens toward Armageddon, every human on the planet will soon be forced to choose a side. Fanboy Nation says Penguins vs. Possums had me glued to the pages. Help support the giveaways, podcasts, and other great free content we provide every day here at Fanbase Press by purchasing your copy of Penguins vs. Possums or one of our other awesome graphic novels at the Fanbase Press online store today. Visit fanbasepress.com and click on the shop link to get your paws on one of the most original and oddball indie comics on the market.
Welcome back to the Fanbase Weekly. Our first story for this week comes from themarysue.com and tackles the gender and ethnic makeup of Star Wars filmic creative teams. To quote the Mary Sue, quote, 24 people have been hired to direct, write, or otherwise serve as the creative lead on one of the 17 planned or released Star Wars films. Of those 24 creators, 23 were white men, end quote. Lee Brackett, co-writer of The Empire Strikes Back, is the only exception. In spite of Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy's involvement with the Time's Up campaign and her outspokenness regarding making the entertainment industry a more equitable environment, it is striking that the above-the-line creative teams behind the Star Wars films remain largely male and white. This past week in the Star Wars mythos was no change in light of the announcement that Game of Thrones creators David Benioff and D.B. Weiss will also create a new series of Star Wars films. So, panel, why do you think that this trend continues at Lucasfilm, and what will it take to bring about change in the ethnic and gender makeup of the Star Wars creative teams?
You know, maybe
Let's try to solve this.
maybe it'll take this weekend, honestly.
Yeah,
Maybe it'll take,
I think
Maybe it'll take Black Panther exploding, you know, the box office, the way it's been exploding pre-sales. Maybe it'll take a real forced refocus. The only unfortunate thing, or I guess thing pushing back against that, is I feel like we've had that happen with female-directed films. Wonder Woman did that already.
And that's still, that's not happening overnight. It takes several years because projects are already in work. Which, along the lines, I was thinking, Ryan Coogler's already over there. I'd watch a Ryan Coogler Star Wars movie.
Absolutely.
Who wouldn't?
And I would say, we were talking about earlier off mic about the Solo trailer, and I've heard so many people saying, gosh, I wish this were a Lando film instead, because that would be amazing. Yeah. And why don't we have that? And why don't we have different creators with different perspectives, different ethnicities, different genders? Why don't we have them telling these stories? I think that especially with the feedback that everyone's been receiving for The Last Jedi, for Force Awakens, that they're clamoring for that. They're clamoring for new perspectives and new creative visions.
And so, wait, to clarify, this is true all the way down through all of the properties. Animated properties?
No.
This was just the
films. This is just the movie. So what's the landscape in animated properties?
That's a little different. So the wonderful thing about Lucasfilm is, and I always forget the name of it, the
story group?
The story group at Lucasfilm is wonderfully diverse with regard to ethnicity, with regard to gender. It's amazing.
And why aren't they pulling from that pool of people?
I do not know. I really could not be.
It seems to be a Hollywood director and writer problem. I mean, because someone pointed out in the comments too. And this is obviously a few years back, but Harry Potter films it's a female created property, and all the writers and directors are men.
She is writing the Fantastic Beast movies. So J.K. Rowling.
Exactly. And so, I think that things are changing, but I think maybe this isn't as much of a Star Wars issue or, branching across all the media as much as it's maybe a Hollywood issue, and it's just lagging behind where clearly the movement's going.
Only white boys can direct action exciting action-y movies.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to A Wrinkle in Time because I loved that book when I was growing up, and I'm looking forward to Ava DuVernay's take on it. So,
but going back to the Black Panther thing, they tried to get her to do that for a long time, and she was attached, and she just didn't want to.
I mean, I think it's probably just everything that has it connected, like that story, that universe. I mean, it's kind of limiting. You can't really experiment so much with characters, I don't think.
And maybe that was the thing. She finally has enough pull to make a big movie, and she's like, well, I kind of want to do my own thing rather than
rather than having something that has to like hit these dots to connect with some interweaving.
But A Wrinkle in Time, I mean, she's doing A Wrinkle in Time. You've got to hit all the dots.
Well, you do,
but you have to connect to the other, like.
There's no other filmmakers making choices.
In some ways, Kevin Feige is co-directing all these. You know what I mean? Yeah.
There's a showrunner attached to the Star Wars films and the Marvel films because someone's saying this is where the overarching story is going, meaning you have to have this character or this moment in your film.
Yeah, but what better opportunity to bring in a director who is looking for the experience, is looking for, you know, we have so many young directors and who've done so many interesting things who might be willing to take on that extra hassle. If it's just a hassle, it might be an opportunity as well. But bring those people in, give them an opportunity to.
And they have been doing that. I think they're shying away from that a little bit now after Josh Trank. Because that was, he's this up-and-coming director, and then too many butting heads.
Well, and they had problems with what's the ones for Solo, Miller and Lord.
Miller and Lord, Colin Trevorrow.
So I think they are going away from that. I guess the question still remains, though, like why? Well, clearly, the push of like for diverse characters, for moving like female leads to the forefront. Why are they not getting the message of like, well, we could do the same behind the camera? Like I personally I don't have any problems with anyone that's being named for these films. They'll probably make great films, but it seems sort of weird to me.
And I also think it's strange because with the film series that Rian Johnson is doing, and then also the one that was recently announced this week that Weiss and Benioff are doing, they are non-Skywalker storylines, so they're completely different and could be completely different perspectives. So I feel it even more curious that if you're telling something that doesn't necessarily, it can fit within the tone of the Star Wars mythos and the universe, but it can be a totally different story.
I will say to that comment, I think a lot of it too is, and this has been my problem with kind of like doing Rogue One and Solo, is that they've tried to stay tangential to the original, you know. So I think once we start seeing more diverse stories, we'll be able to get. They'll go, oh yes, let's get more diverse creators, but with the idea of like we got to stay like parallel to the original trilogy or whatever. I'm glad that they're starting to do those other stories so they can tell these different ideas or right.
I totally agree with you, Joe. I unfortunately, being such a huge Star Wars fan, I'm still at a loss for words of like I don't know what kind of conversations, even just from an optics point of view, or I mean, because I hear what you're saying, but like the films that have come out have been more diverse than any Star Wars films that we've seen. There's no reason that I can think of that they're like. I mean, beyond the thing of like we're going with what we consider tried and true, safe bets, you know, for creating stuff, but that by saying that implies that somehow there's not female directors or directors of color out there that aren't safe bets, and that's just ridiculous of a concept, you know.
And I'm not saying I subscribe to
that.
I'm just trying to,
I agree, and I'm just pushing back of like I'm just really shocked by this.
The one question I will pose as we bring this segment to a close is, are there any other directors, writers out there that you would like to see take over a Star Wars film in replacement of creators like Rian Johnson, like Weiss and Benioff?
Well, the article mentions that Kathleen Kennedy has talked to, or at least was rumored to have had a meeting with the director from Handmaid's Tale on Hulu, Reed Morano, and I mean... If that's not a calling card, I don't know what is. That series is phenomenal. The character development is amazing. It's just, she would be great.
I'd like to see Catherine Bigelow take on a Star Wars film. I think that would be really cool. I think Lexi Alexander would do a really hardcore, action-oriented Star Wars film.
Character development Star Wars film.
Rachel Talalay has been doing a great job directing a lot of Doctor Who episodes, so I'd like to see her do that. I'd also want to see Jordan Peele do a Tag and Bink movie, which I think would just be a perfect pairing.
Wow, yeah.
And they're going to be canon. They're in Solo, so...
That's true. That's true. Robin, Giulie, any last remarks?
I think Game of Thrones, don't they have a lot of female directors? Maybe they can...
They do, I think, on the show.
Was it McLaurin? What's her name? Who also did Breaking Bad. That director was also up for doing Wonder Woman way back when.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lexi Alexander, didn't she do some?
Oh, okay.
But I think, honestly, like, if they do a live-action TV show, that's where you're going to probably get the most.
Sure.
And maybe...
But they have less say in directing a TV episode, you know what I mean, than doing your own movie in some ways.
Yeah. There's honestly no excuse why they don't have somebody now. But maybe that would be, like, a testing ground for them.
Sure.
Like, get a bunch of different directors in there, and then, like, okay, you want to do a feature now.
Exactly.
Especially if they have such a long, like, list of, like, TV shows they've been on. I mean, if they have, like, a long, like, credit list, why not give them a shot?
Absolutely.
Basically, from this point forward, it would be shocking and unbelievable that Kennedy would not push forward with a much more diverse, especially in terms of gender, but hopefully across the board on all aspects. But if they don't from this point forward, it's just going to be so glaring that...
Yeah.
Well, I know that Kathleen is an avid listener of the Fanbase Weekly podcast,
Yes.
so I'm sure that in the next news cycle next week, we'll be hearing more
She'll
about...
call in and let us know.
She will.
who
She's like,
the,
thank you, Fanbase
Yes.
Weekly. Thank you, Robin Giulie, for illuminating this
suggestion.
issue.
Hi, Katie!
Well, on that note, we will take a brief break and we will return with our next story.
Hey, this is Justin, and over there is Eric of Tread Perilously.
Tread Perilously.
That's right. It's a podcast where we talk about bad episodes of great TV.
For instance, Star Trek The Next Generation.
Twin Peaks.
Seventh Heaven.
Doctor Who.
Hunter.
Well, that's where we have to stop. The bright center of the Tread Perilously universe. A show you've never heard of. Because it's that kind of relevance that we like to do here.
Absolutely. But yes, join us every Thursday on the Fanbase Press podcast network for Tread Perilously. Available on iTunes, Libsyn, and fanbasepress.com under podcasts in the audio tab. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Tread Perilously.
Welcome back to the Fanbase Weekly. Next up, in anticipation of the upcoming release of Black Panther, the feature film, we take a look at a story from io9.com that gives a brief history of Wakanda under T'Challa's reign. So, for those who are unaware, Wakanda, officially known as the Kingdom of Wakanda, is an isolationist country located in Africa. In the Marvel universe, that is, not in the real world, unfortunately. It is ruled by King T'Challa, and he is the heir of the mantle of Black Panther. And the country is also known, the only known source of the metal vibranium, the same substance used to create Captain America's mighty shield. Now, while to the outside world, Wakanda appears to be a third world nation, it is secretly the world's most technologically advanced country. In IO9's piece on the canonical history of Wakanda, Charles Pullum Moore breaks down a few key moments from the country's comic book past so that readers can go into the Black Panther feature film knowing a bit more about the character's homeland. IO9's article covers T'Challa's introduction in Fantastic Four issue number 52, the character's induction into the ranks of the Avengers, his history with his rival, Killmonger, played by Michael B. Jordan in the upcoming film, the U.S. government's attempts to gain access to Wakanda's vibranium, and much, much more. Definitely check out the article if you get a chance. But for now, we'll turn to our panel and ask, how familiar are you with the character of Black Panther? Are you eager to see the film upon its release? And what did you find interesting about IO9's piece on the history of Wakanda?
I'll start off by saying that I bet, have the least amount of knowledge about both Black Panther as a character and Wakanda and all of this. I know what the Marvel Cinematic Universe has told me so far.
So you know Bucky's there, and that's about it.
Yeah, I know Bucky's there. Exactly. But no, I am as excited for this as probably anything, because it really does feel like a completely new universe in what they are showing, especially about what I think is kind of just a complete merging of traditional themes, but technology, and it just, it looks so incredible.
The thing that I always find fascinating with Wakanda, and then even like Atlan, different civilizations they have in the Marvel Universe, is that they have evolved separately from us. So it's interesting the technology they have that we don't have, and kind of vice versa. And I like that idea of it's on Earth, but it's kind of alien.
Yeah, well, and it feels really thoughtfully laid out in terms of mirroring issues like colonialism and things that would have led a country to have become isolationist in their surrounding environment. It feels like there's a lot of really thoughtful things in that world building that I'm pretty excited to learn more about. Anyway, I'm learning.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know much about the character only through the Avengers films when he was first introduced. I thought, okay, he's quite the action character. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't know much about it, and reading the article, I was like, wow, this is really dense history. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I as well don't have much history with Black Panther through the comics. A lot of the more key moments, I guess, in the character's life were when I wasn't really reading Marvel stuff. So I never really read a whole lot of Black Panther. And honestly, reading the article, it's one of those ones where when they go through the history of a character that's been around for so long and telling all these different things, my eyes just kind of glaze over. I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
Compared to what I found was funny is most of this stuff is from the past like 10, 15 years. Most of this isn't even the 40 years worth of history, which is funny for me that most of this is like, this is the most recent stuff, so it's not,
A lot of my knowledge comes from the BET animated series that Bryant and I discovered. When was this? Like 10 years ago?
Yeah, I don't know. It was like when the first couple years Netflix was out. It was on there for a while.
And of course, there was an actual Stan Lee cameo in the animated series, which was kind of amazing.
The series was fantastic.
But this character, I loved the series, and it's when I was first introduced to the character and was obsessed ever since. But the funny thing for me is that when I read descriptions of the character, or when you do like Wikipedia, it always says like, of all the characters, he's not a god, but he basically can do everything. He is super smart, and has all of these advances, and he's super strong, and it's just like a litany of everything that you would want to be in a human. He is, plus 10 other things. And also
there seems to be a blend of all of like the mysticism of actual natural physical ability, enhanced superpower, but also the kind of that Batman, he taps into all of the technology. Like, he's the kind of guy who goes out and looks at all avenues of enhancement and takes advantage of all of it, and that's very intriguing to me.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree. I think I'm very excited for the film. The history here was really interesting, I think, for those that want to dive into comic book origins for the character, for the film, maybe if either before or after you get a chance to see the film. The one interesting concept that I find really fascinating about this character, or I guess about Wakanda in general, is that is existed, since its 60s origins. And in the concept itself, the idea of Wakanda, this place that is hidden away in Africa that is the most advanced technology of anywhere on Earth, and has like this incredibly valuable resource that can't be found anywhere else, really is... It's amazing to me that more people don't focus on this, because it's really this indictment from the creators of the character about like, hey, if this country or this continent hadn't been essentially pillaged and everything was ripped out of it, everything of value, and
every
its
bad
people,
thing, the colonialism and everything that's been
look
bad.
at this is the idea that maybe they could be the leading superpower, in the world. And so I find that really interesting. And I think that implication really brings a lot of interesting story beats to the character, because I can remember even just I don't remember what the conflict was, but when Barbara and I were watching the animated series she mentioned, there's an episode that opens with T'Challa's father, when he was Black Panther, being approached by Captain America in the 40s, I believe in the lead up to World War II, and he's basically like, hey, we know about you, we need you to come help, and they're essentially like, listen, you never care about us ever, so we're not coming to your war that you've all started.
I would say they do have the seeds of that in Captain America: The First Avenger. So it'd be interesting to do a flashback of like Howard Stark trying to go and meeting.
Absolutely.
It'd obviously be like his grandfather or something like that, but that'd be interesting to see a flashback at some point.
Definitely.
Before we close out, can I take a little bit of a side topic on Black Panther?
Sure.
And just remind people that this would have been my fan of thing as well if I hadn't bought a new carpet. Anyway, but the Kendrick Lamar produced soundtrack for the movie
I haven't gotten to listen
came
to it.
out
Everyone
this week.
loves
Is it
though.
amazing?
So good. But in particular, the song "All the Stars," which is Kendrick Lamar and SZA. Go find the video for this song on YouTube. It is gorgeous. And ends with this beautiful shot of basically Kendrick Lamar walking into what looks like a sacred museum kind of room, and it's the female warrior characters. I don't know if it's specifically the characters from the movie, but they're these just larger than life statuettes of all of these female warrior characters from Wakanda, and he's this little person in the room, and he's looking up at all of them with this it's gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful. So go check out that video. And the soundtrack. Very good.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking about Black Panther again. I will say, for those that want to read up on Black Panther, the biggest recommendation seems to be Panther's Rage by Don McGregor. This is the first battle that the character has with Killmonger, so it should be inspiring a lot of the film that we're about to see, and apparently Dwayne McDuffie once called this one of the greatest comic book stories ever. So check that out, and we will be back in just a moment with our next story.
Hi, this is Barbara with Fanbase Press. As you may know, Fanbase Press is a publisher of comic books, graphic novels, and other fine media. And we're overjoyed to announce the newest addition to our publishing slate with Quince, a 15-issue bilingual creator-owned comic book series that follows a year in the life of Lupe, a 15-year-old girl who discovers that her quinceañera brings with it a super cool party and superpowers. In Quince, Lupe is just your average, insecure, well-meaning, occasionally cranky teenage girl whose life is completely turned upside down when she discovers she has superpowers. Her Quince powers only last as long as she's 15, so over the course of this roller coaster year, we follow the adventures of Lupe as she figures out what it really means to be a hero. Eric Lopez, the voice of Blue Beetle in Young Justice, says, Quince is a uniquely fun and exciting new take on the classic superhero story. Move over, Peter Parker and Aunt May. Make room for Lupita and Abuela. Help to support the giveaways, podcasts, and other free content we provide every day here at Fanbase Press by purchasing your copy of Quince or one of our other awesome graphic novels in the Fanbase Press online store. Visit fanbasepress.com today and click on the shop link to get your hands on some of the most original and entertaining indie comics on the market.
So in case you're lost, you're back with us now on the Fanbase Weekly. You're not on some other podcast. And we're going to make sure you know you're on the Fanbase Weekly because we're now going to talk about space and sending stuff into space. We like to do that.
Yes.
On Tuesday of this week, February 6th at 3:45 p.m. Eastern Time, which was earlier about lunchtime for me. So I was sitting at my desk at work watching this live on my phone, and I'm probably making all of my coworkers very worried around me because, yeah, you'll know how I reacted.
There's nothing wrong with loving science.
Yes. SpaceX's Falcon Heavy rocket successfully lifted off from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Falcon Heavy is the most powerful operational rocket in the world by a factor of 2, with the ability to lift into orbit a mass greater than a 737 jetliner, loaded with passengers, crew, luggage, and fuel, which I'm sure they probably will charge you for the luggage on the... Anyway. Only the Saturn V moon rocket, last flown in 1973, has delivered more payload to orbit.
Whoa.
Yeah, payload to orbit. Falcon Heavy's first stage is composed of 3 Falcon 9 engine cores, which if you've been following what SpaceX has been doing, they've been testing these Falcon 9 rockets fairly frequently, whose 27 Merlin engines, I love the name of the engine, together generate more than 5 million pounds of thrust at liftoff, equal to approximately 18 747 aircraft. The payload in the Falcon Heavy was perhaps more entertaining than the actual launch. SpaceX's CEO, Elon Musk, put his own personal cherry red convertible Tesla Roadster into space, driven by a dummy named Starman and accompanied by the immortal words, "Don't panic," from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, emblazoned on the dash of the car. The car has been delivered into, by now, an elliptical orbit that puts the Tesla on a path to swing not very close to Mars, but in the general vicinity of Mars. And then it'll continue to drift in space for 100 million years or 1 million miles, whichever comes first, which I imagine is going to make it difficult for a Starman to get it in for checkups, its next service appointment, I suppose. Arguably one of the coolest and financially successful elements of the launch was the successful re-landing of the 2 Falcon 9 boosters, which detached from the rocket as it was going into space, did a flip maneuver, redirected themselves back down to Earth, and landed simultaneously from their at their origin point, which was fucking phenomenal. To take it into mature rating there, it was amazing. That video, you've got to go check out that video of that synchronized landing. It will really restore your faith in humanity, the fact that we could possibly live in a sci-fi movie, and maybe are right now. So I'm curious to know, did you watch the Falcon Heavy launch live? Did you catch up on a video? Have you gone to go see the Starman live webcam? You can watch him for as long as the webcam lives, I guess.
I did not watch it live, sadly. I could not at work. But I did watch the video after, and it's really exciting and phenomenal. And mostly I just look forward to your recaps because I love your enthusiasm.
Oh my god. I was at my desk going, oh my god! Oh my god! And I have one coworker in the room with me. She's like, what's happening? She was in tune with me and not thinking I was flipping out entirely. But
my favorite thing of all the videos was the shot of Starman playing Bowie, and it was Tesla playing a Bowie, and then shot of Inception, or not Inception, The Prestige, and it was Bowie playing Tesla, and the circle is complete.
It is so meta.
Which I just, a lot of people are like, oh, that's the silliest thing in the world to shoot this red convertible.
He's the real life Iron Man.
Yeah, it's also the most Tony Stark thing in the world to do.
How memorable is this image of this astronaut crash test dummy in this red car with the Earth behind
against
him?
A spherical Earth that is not flat.
Not a flat Earth.
And speaking of being at work, when I saw, it was actually one of my coworkers, he had posted something on Instagram, and I was just like, I really don't get what's happening. Why is this guy driving a car in space? Because, he's with a steering wheel and there's radio, and I was just like, what's happening? And then I saw the hashtag, I was like, oh, okay. Time to look up what's on the news. But yeah, it was very, very cool. Yeah.
It is eccentric, but so many people are finding out about this that wouldn't have, he launched a rocket in space? Okay, who cares? Wait, he launched a car into space?
Yeah.
And that gets...
And that's the point.
Yeah.
Millions of additional people are going to check in on this and remember the event. And because it did feel like, it felt like a momentous step forward in our capability. When you watch those 2 rockets come back down and land, you realize, oh, yeah, that is a completely new thing that we are doing. It's a big thing. And I know it's all tied to money. It's tied to whether or not we can afford to send stuff up easier. But that's the next step.
But that's it. You got to do these things now before you can, get the tools to be able to do the later steps.
Yeah. So, really the next steps are, development of an even heavier rocket that would be capable of getting something that is, payload worthy, human payload, something that is enough to go to Mars with. This puts us... I'm doing hand gestures. This puts us an inch away, from that next step, I think.
You know what we'll have to do, Claire? We'll have to science the shit out of it.
We will have to science the shit out of it. I know. And half of the memes were about how the Starman is on his way to rescue Mark Watney, which... I love it.
I think that my favorite tweet was someone was overjoyed because now that the boosters land rocket, like engine first down like that, they're like, this is something that used to happen in sci-fi films all the time. And people would be like, that's wrong. Like, they don't land that way. Now they do.
Now they do.
Yeah, I didn't watch the video of the actual rocket launch, but I watched a reaction video of Elon Musk.
Oh, amazing.
And this is a guy who spent years doing this, millions of dollars, and even he was like, wow, that fucking worked. Like,
he was watching it like on a computer or from a screen or something, and then it's funny because here's the CEO of this company, and they had to plan this launch event for whatever, and then all of a sudden it dawns on him he could run outside and look at it. So all of a sudden he's running.
With all these people, like wow, taking photos. And he was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the expectation of it just exploding on the launch pad once it just lifted 10 feet off the launch pad, I'm like, oh, it didn't explode on the launch pad. Thank God.
Yes.
Don't they do some launches around here? Because there was one in Van Nuys like a month and a half ago. I think that was SpaceX.
Yeah, there was one, especially out of Valencia. We saw it really distinctly. I can't remember where they launched from.
I heard it was from Van Nuys.
Yeah.
Well, there was the one a couple weeks ago that turned out to be SpaceX that everyone thought was a UFO.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they have something nearby.
Yeah, and it's the smaller rocket tests are and then of course it was maybe 6 months ago, 8 months ago.
Let's be honest, Drew. No one thought it was a UFO. Everyone thought we were getting bombed.
Everybody thought it was a missile from North Korea.
We're much more cynical.
But was it 6 months, 8 months ago? It was during our last season of podcast. We were talking about SpaceX again, but it was because one of the Falcon 9s had blown up on the launch pad.
That's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
While they were testing the fuel.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Anyway, well, my coworkers lived through this event without my flipping out on them too badly. Oh, good Lord.
They will live to see another day.
So exciting. Go watch the launch if you haven't watched it yet. Go look up the live webcam on YouTube and check out where Starman is at the moment. And we'll be right back.
Greetings, listeners. This is Bryant Dillon from Fanbase Press, and I'm here to let you know that in addition to our podcasts and website, Fanbase Press is also a publisher of comic books, graphic novels, and other fine media. Horror comic book fans need look no further than Fanbase Press to satisfy their darkest desires. Something Animal, the Fanbase's premier graphic novel, is a bold, visceral, and unflinching take on the vampire genre. After witnessing his sister's brutal murder, Jack struggles to cope with the disturbing psychological aftermath. Tormented by images of the attack, Jack finds himself physically ill and unable to eat, scared and alone. He is forced to confront a growing thirst for blood and the harsh reality that either his sanity is quickly crumbling or that he is turning into something else. Something dark. Something animal. Famous Monsters of Filmland says Something Animal managed to tap into terror in a way I haven't seen since Alan Schwartz's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And popular geek news website Geekscape.net says Something Animal is not your cookie-cutter comic or standard graphic novel. Help support the giveaways, podcasts, and other free content we provide every day here at Fanbase Press by purchasing a copy of Something Animal or one of our other awesome graphic novels at the Fanbase online store today. Visit fanbasepress.com today and click on the shop link to secure the ultimate in indie graphic novel horror.
Welcome back. The internet has been abuzz this past week with several trailers. So for our final story this week, we will discuss the trailers for Venom, Deadpool 2, and Solo, a Star Wars story. While none of these trailers give much of an idea about the plot of their respective movies, they do give audiences a taste of the movie's tones. Venom looks to be a dark and brooding character piece. Deadpool appears to continue the irreverent humor of the first film, and Solo seems to be an action-adventure crime movie. So, panel, are you interested in these movies? Did anything stick out for you in the trailers, and was there perhaps any other trailers, like Jessica Jones Season 2, that got you excited?
Drew, did Jessica Jones Season 2 trailer get you excited?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was very excited.
Okay.
I was excited by it as well. But
I'm going to let everyone else talk first.
Okay. I don't know that much about Venom, so I didn't have any reactions in terms of whether the story seems feasible or not. I like Tom Hardy, but I'm not... Oh, I don't know. There wasn't really anything that appealed to me in terms of, like, this looks like an interesting character I'm going to want to know about. But it's a teaser trailer.
It's a teaser,
I'm not sure
so it
they're
doesn't give
throwing
you
that
much.
out there
But
yet.
I would agree, it's sort of forgettable, and it's not like it's in a problematic place, but it's like, oh, you don't have a ton to show yet, or you don't want to show a ton yet.
I did appreciate that most of the action sequences that they showed us seemed to be very realistic in their tone.
And it does seem character focused. I would agree with that.
So, and those are two things about superhero stories that are always intriguing to me. So I'm holding out judgment on that one. Deadpool, Cable's not the kind of character I ever would expect to really enjoy. But then I could also say that about Deadpool, and this movie has made him enjoyable to me. So it was pretty much everything I expected in a Deadpool trailer. That's quite delightful. And I'm very hopeful about Solo. I'm still holding on to the fact that they've cast this movie, I think, very, very well. It has a really interesting kind of vintagey feel to it for the world that it's in, and I think that's interesting. So, yeah.
Julie and Rob?
For Solo, that was probably one of my favorites from this week, just because he's such an interesting character. I really want to see like the younger Solo. So in the trailer, it's very interesting, and like you said, it's very vintagey, and I think that's why that appealed to me. And also knowing that now it's in better hands with Ron Howard, that's also an appeal. So I'm looking forward to the movie myself.
I think that's one for my expectations were so low after hearing all the problems they had with it, and then seeing it like, okay, this does have potential.
And they're kind of talking... Didn't I read that they're kind of admitting now that Ron Howard came in and basically reshot most of the movie?
Like 80-90% of it,
Wow.
Which worked for Justice League.
Wait, something worked in Justice League?
I thought it was better than any of the movies that they had put out directed by men recently. Justice League? It was all right. Better than Man of Steel, and
I can agree with that. But I hope Solo turns out much better than Justice League. I would agree. I really loved... I'm so surprised by Solo, and the more that I watch the trailer, the more I'm like, oh man, I'm getting my hopes up for this movie, because things just seem... I know I don't want to, but like things just seem really exciting. It seems like there's some freedom with that character where they're not like being like, here's how he got his vest, here's how he got his gun. You know, it feels...
I hope it's not that.
I hope it's not, but it does feel it has a Western flair. It seems like we're going to see some fun interactions. It feels like... I mean, seeing like just that shot of Alden Ehrenreich with like the huge furry, like almost like pimp coat, like in the snow with Woody Harrelson, I'm like, I don't know, it just makes me feel like, hey, this is going to be like a really fun movie where it's just like a bunch of like characters, underworld characters put together.
I also did feel like the origin story in the first of the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. It feels like that would be fine for me, honestly. Trying to be in the,
I mean, I don't want him to become the head of the Enterprise, but if the thing is like we're talking a Chris Pine type, flair to it, great, fantastic,
Did you notice? I saw someone pointed out that the dice from Last Jedi is in that like speeder.
In his speeder, yeah.
So I assume it's. I think, especially having Ron Howard in it, I've heard rumors that it's possibly like having a bit of American Graffiti feel to it. So he was like a racer at first, so it's kind of that.
And Harrison Ford was in there too.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I'm like, okay, that could be interesting. Having it like kind of influenced by that, and then he grows into having his own ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Alden Ehrenreich really does seem to feel like he's not an exact, like, you're like, oh, that's Harrison Ford, but he seems to have the feel of, like, an untested, not completely confident in himself, but putting on a lot of bravado type Han. And thinking him with Donald Glover. Oh my god! Like I'm just like I can't wait to see their first scene together.
I will say I haven't seen anything with him, so this trailer gave me more hope in him. Like, okay, I see it.
Yeah,
you know.
But I'm basing this on seeing him in Hail Caesar, and that's it. But he was absolutely the hands down standout in that movie. He carried the movie away with just a very brief role. But my impression of him in that movie is that he's the kind of actor that does have that kind of very deft ability to walk the line, kind of the way I think Chris Pine did with Kirk, where he kind of walked the line of the mannerisms and being...
But it's not like an impression.
But not an impression, not a caricature, so cross our fingers for that.
Yeah.
Barbara! You haven't said anything, Barbara.
I haven't. And that's okay.
Come on, Barbara.
For me, I watched all of the trailers. I even watched Jessica Jones, although I haven't watched Jessica Jones.
I thought you've seen the show. I didn't know.
I watched the first episode.
Okay.
Well,
that counts.
That's enough. But for some reason, none of the trailers really connected with me. I wasn't super excited by them, but at the same time, I was really excited by... And thinking back, just Star Wars wise, I was super excited by the Force Awakens trailer. I was super excited by the Rogue One trailer. I was super excited by the Last Jedi trailer. And then for some of them, I didn't feel that way. So I'm hoping that maybe it's just the opposite here, that even though I'm not really excited about Solo, it will be really great in execution.
There's been a few Marvel movies for you like that, like Spider-Man Homecoming.
Spider-Man Homecoming, I was not super thrilled with the trailer. Even Doctor Strange, which I love Doctor Strange, but for some reason that trailer just didn't hit me and didn't excite me, but then I love the movie. So I'm hoping that that's the case. I didn't hate any of them. I'm not a huge Tom Hardy fan, so I'm not really excited about Venom.
Venom is a character too that I will say some people are really going to bond with, and some people might not because it's a darker anti-hero. But the one I will throw out, the one thing that gives me real hope for that, I don't know if anyone else felt this, but they're using the really comic book-esque Venom eyes and the smile for the poster, and so I have faith that they're going to translate that on screen, really creepy, really and scary, honestly.
And honestly, I mean, the black suit Spider-Man stuff is pretty much my favorite stuff in all of comics. I mean, I have almost all the issues. And I wasn't wowed by this trailer, and I'm worried with the comic booky thing. I'm worried they're going to go like too exaggerated with his look, and that's why I'm worried.
I'm waiting for a full trailer.
Isn't that the kind of? I guess isn't that kind of the way? I mean, maybe this is just not your Venom, but isn't that the way that Todd McFarlane really drew him? Was really kind of exaggerated chin and big teeth.
Here's the thing too: is I like the earlier stuff. I don't like the later stuff where it was exaggerated and all kind of like completely tenderly.
I got you.
You know what I mean? And that's what I'm worrying. This is going to be. This is going to be the more like oozy Venom and more of like nebulous kind of.
Well, as long as it's not Topher Grace with...
And I do think Tom Hardy is a really good choice for Eddie Brock. And I will say, as to Jessica Jones, I'm very excited because they're... Like, I feel like they're doing what I want to see, which is Hellcat is going to be Hellcat in this. She's not just there. For those of you who don't know, in Jessica Jones Season 1, her like adopted sister is a superhero known as Hellcat, who was a founding member of the Defenders, and it also looks like they're doing what I thought they were going to do, which is they're not resurrecting Purple Man, but David Tennant is back as her like self-conscious doubt, and which is an incredibly cool concept to do.
See seasons 2 and 3 of The Leftovers.
Okay,
and Doubt. I'll have to say.
I also we have to at least mention before we wrap up, it was brilliant for Deadpool to pull out the Woody, the Disney references, given the purchase
and
of
Justice League reference.
Yes, there was a good Justice League reference as well. But I just loved the idea that they were like, we're going to make fun of this whole concept. We're going to have Woody
and
Woody
him
outfit
going,
on it.
Fuck it, I'll do it myself. And I didn't catch this until someone pointed it out. Was Josh Brolin as Thanos grabs the Infinity Gauntlet and goes,
mhm.
"Fine, I'll do it myself." So it was a nod to him.
Yeah,
I was like,
there's a lot of fun in
They,
that trailer.
they do great humor in that movie, but they do layer in so much. It's so carefully done and written. It's
I think I mean there's probably a lot of people involved in it, but I
Barbra
think a lot of credit
Mhm.
does need to be given to Ryan Reynolds and Barbra. Even though I know you're making the stink face right now, I know that even Barbra gets swayed occasionally, like when the Bob Ross painting
or the
video pops up.
Flashdance poster
Yes.
he's done now.
See, and that's actually a comment that I made to Brian. So the end of the trailer we watched, it came up with the poster
Yeah.
of the Flashdance, and for me, Deadpool is a character that's all that I need.
She just needs
I
the
just
trailer or the
need
poster.
A
or something,
poster.
Yeah.
It's too much for me.
I
don't know.
Well, you can enjoy
I
the
need
marketing
small
of the
amounts.
film.
You know,
Doses of
honestly,
Deadpool.
I think if they hadn't made the decision to just go completely breaking the fourth wall with this, all of the Deadpool stuff, I probably would have the same reaction that you do to the character. It's just he's just too much.
Yeah.
But that for me completely takes it down to it. Yeah, no, we're in this together. You know, I guess I don't know.
Which, along those lines, if the whole Fox Disney deal goes through, everyone's talking about, oh, they should bring over this character. Nope, Deadpool's the only one who they should bring over, and he should just be like, yep, I jumped, that ship was sinking, so I joined you guys in the MCU. And that's all you have to have, and then just, all right, everyone else is recast and everything, but him, he just switches teams.
No, I can
I'd
see
like to
that. That would be fun.
So in case you're wanting to catch these out this year, Venom will be out October 5th. Deadpool is May 18th. Solo is May 25th. And Jessica Jones is March 8th. We'll be back after this message.
Hey listeners, this is Barbara from Fanbase Press, and I'm here to let you know that in addition to our podcasts and website, Fanbase Press is also a publisher of comic books, graphic novels, and other fine media. Fans of dark, unflinching, and epic fantasy will definitely want to get their hands on the Fanbase Press graphic novel, The Arcs. Centuries after God's abdication from the earth, the 7 archangels are trapped in a losing war against Lucifer and his demonic forces. Unable to ascend into heaven, unable to even die, the Arcs were tasked by the Almighty to keep humanity safe from Lucifer until God's return. But as time ticks on, as more and more angels are clawed to shreds by the demons, as angels begin to lose faith and join the Hellions, the Arcs must face the real question. What if God isn't coming back to save them? Matt Hawkins, writer of Think Tank and president of Top Cow, says the Arcs is like They Live, but with angels and demons. Like much from Fanbase Press, this book isn't for the faint of heart. But if you want something with gravitas and an interesting take on religious mythology, definitely give this book a shot. Adam Bunch of Adventure Amigo says the Arcs takes risks where many others would simply not have the nerve to do so, and that it's a title he'd highly recommend you pick up. Help support the giveaways, podcasts, and other free content we provide every day here at Fanbase Press by purchasing a copy of The Arcs or one of our other awesome graphic novels at the Fanbase Press online store today. Visit fanbasepress.com today and click on the shop link to secure a graphic novel experience that will reward your faith in the fanbase. Julie and Rob, before we sign off for this week, are there any updates that you would like to share with our listeners, and where can we find you?
I mean, we can find us on Facebook at Ginger Rabbit Studio. That's where we do most of our postings for where we're going to do conventions and anything that's up and coming, like any news about our works. Rob, do you have anything?
Yeah, well, we don't have any conventions coming up, but you did release a mini comic recently.
Oh yeah, it's called She Hears Voices. It's a mini comic. It's basically a little collection of short stories I'll be handing them out while I go to conventions. We'll probably be walking around for WonderCon at least, if not Long Beach coming up.
We'll be at Long Beach. Yeah, we'll be there too. But yeah, the Facebook Ginger Rabbit Studio. I don't post on Twitter a whole lot anymore, but I do on Instagram. But it's not all comic-centric stuff. A lot of craft beer, weird photos.
You enjoy that as well.
Yeah.
Craft beers go well with comics.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And autographs. I do TTM autographs through the mail. So a lot of sports stuff.
And you can find me on Twitter. I usually retweet a lot and just tweet about my day. So, so it's on Twitter. It's at Giulie Speziani. So Gspezini.
Very cool. Well, Bryant, Claire, and Drew, where can we find you? Claire, we'll start with you.
Well, you can find my geek-themed cross-stitch patterns on Etsy. My store is Unexpected Hobby, and that carries through to everything else. My blog is unexpectedhobby.com. I am at Unexpected Hobby on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And Drew?
I'm at Fanbase Drew.
How's the tweeting going, Drew?
I did one this month so far.
That's great. That's wonderful. You're halfway there. Bryant, where can we find you?
I am on Twitter at Comic Book Slayer, and I am on Instagram at Comic Book Sniffer.
And you can find me on Twitter at Barbra J. Dillon. You can also find me on the Instagram now.
Oh, man.
Which is very exciting.
Yeah.
I think I'm also Barbra J. Dillon.
I think so, yes.
I don't know.
Just look for it. Search Barbra Dillon. She'll pop up.
I will be there.
She has a Star Wars shirt on.
It's very exciting. It's fun. I'm still learning. You can also find Fanbase Press on Twitter at fanbase_press. You can find us also on Instagram. You can find us on iTunes, YouTube, pretty much everywhere except MySpace.
That's true.
So definitely check us out. As Rob mentioned, we will also be at Long Beach Comic Expo this coming weekend. We'll be there February 17th and 18th at table A6, I believe, in Artist Alley.
Sorry, I don't know, but yes, we're in Artist Alley.
Just say it with confidence. Yes, that is where we will
We'll be there. We'll be doing a lot of panels. You'll just need to look for us.
Exactly. Be sure to visit the Fanbase Press website. We have our press release with all of the information, as well as the 3 panels that we will be doing. And there are Facebook events on our Fanbase Press Facebook page as well, so be sure to check those out. Brian, do you want to also talk a little bit about the Creating Fanbase series?
We launched a new featured series on the website. Our feature series or article series that we do on our website, fanbasepress.com, and the latest one that we launched this week is called Creating Fandoms, and this is a blog or article series that is focused entirely on how we create fandoms here at Fanbase Press. So we're going to be giving you a behind-the-scenes look at some of our upcoming projects. We'll be interviewing some creators that we're working with, giving you some sort of peek and some insight into how we go about the different processes of creation. And this generally applies to comics and graphic novels, but we are taking on some entirely new projects, things like some craft books that might be coming up, an audio drama. We will be sure to let you know more information about those projects as they get closer to completion, but a great way to follow along would be to check out this featured series. Once again, it's Creating Fandoms, and you'll be able to find it once a month at fanbasepress.com.
And on that very serious police alarm that just went by, that notes...
Apparently Creating Fandoms is illegal.
It's salacious. That wraps things up for this episode of the Fanbase Weekly. Thank you to Giulie and Rob for joining us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter and subscribe to and rate the show on iTunes. Don't forget that you can also email us with your comments, questions, concerns, and all other geeky inquiries at thefanbaseweekly@gmail.com. Or you can call us now, which is very exciting. We'd love to hear you at 818-208-7379. In addition, we want to offer a special thanks to Adam Warrock for our podcast's theme song, as well as Fanbase Press staffer Sean Foster for each week's amazing new episode photo. Thank you for listening. We will see you in 2 weeks, because note, we will be off next week for Long Beach Comic Expo. We will see you then.
This has been part of the Fanbase Press Podcast Network.